Good evening and welcome from Leicester Square in the heart of London's West End. This is the Bell, where a cavalcade of stars arrive before you with teachers on their mind. The film version of Alan Bennett's History Boys boasts two great performances from Adrian Scarborough and Samuel Barnett, two men determined to put you off eating sweets for life. Mild-mannered Yorkshire lad Gervais Finn promises not to talk about cricket. And Floella Benjamin turns on the 1,000-watt smile that enchanted a generation of kids. Now, hard though it might be to imagine, there was once a time when good exam results were the exception rather than the expectation. The film of Alan Bennett's play, History Boys, follows a group of 80s pupils hoping to get to Oxbridge with the help of a new teacher drafted in for the purpose of lifting their work to the required standard. And from the film, I'm joined by everyone's favourite PE teacher, played by Adrian Scarborough, and the Olivier Award-nominated Samuel Barnett, who plays Posner. Gents, how are you doing?
Good. Very well,
excellent.
Thanks.
So tell us about Wilkes. How did you get inside this engaging character?
It was my revenge, basically, on every PE teacher that has ever taught me. Because, as you can see, I'm not the sporty type, really. I was always the last one picked. So I just thought, well, Alan wrote it anyway, and he just turned him into a Christian right-wing nutter, which is kind of great.
And what about travelling all around the world, as you've done, Samuel? I mean, you've done History Boys on stage, on film, you've done it on Australia and Hong Kong. Is there a cultural difference between how audiences take it?
Not really. I mean, wherever we went, there was a strong sort of expat following, you know, in Hong Kong, Australia and Sydney.
So you travelled the world, but it was only English people ever went to see History Boys?
That's right. No, I mean, New York was fantastic. And actually, the biggest surprise is that the cultural difference between London and New York is not that big at all.
Now, on Broadway, though, they really root for characters, don't they? And they've been known to kind of, you know, when their favourite comes back on or has a particularly quality line, they jump up and give it the "oh yeah" and stuff like that. Did you have any of this compared to the silence, respectful silence of the National Theatre?
They were louder than the London audiences. Yeah, they show their appreciation more, definitely. But equally, they show it if they don't like it.
Adrian, you've worked with Alan Bennett before. I mean, you both did Wind in the Willows together, did the voices. How was that, standing beside the author of the piece as you did voices together?
Well, we've done a few things together, and in fact, one of my first days filming ever on an extraordinary programme was pushing. I'd got Alan Bennett on my left, Edward Fox on my right, and I was pushing Sir John Gielgud down the road in a wheelchair.
What a sandwich!
I know, and I felt so utterly out of my depth. Alan's just such a lovely fella, and he's been very good to me over the years, bless him. Because I wasn't in the original play or anything like that. He just sort of chucked this PE teacher in at the last minute into the film.
They needed to get a heavyweight in for the movie version,
That's what it
obviously,
was,
you know.
basically, you know. A love interest for Francis de la Tour. That's what it was.
Samuel, I mean, you've been garlanded all over the world. You were nominated for an Olivier and for a Tony Award. When you were sitting there in the audience, hoping to win, I guess, did you think this was going to be the high point of your career?
Well, I hope it isn't all downhill from here. It's certainly been the high point so far. Yeah, New York was incredible, but then, you know, we finished on October the 1st on Broadway, and that night flew back for the premiere of the film on the 2nd of October here. So it's just been a complete whirlwind roller coaster. It's been amazing.
People might have seen you doing distinguished work in a completely different genre with Steve Coogan in Saxondale. Are you going to be doing any more of those, do you think?
No. He has been commissioned to do another series, though.
Did you fall out or something? Is that why you know you'll never be doing it again?
No, he just drags me in when he's bored, really, I think.
Because you did Coogan's Run, didn't you?
I did do Coogan's Run, yeah. Every now and again we sort of we see one another, and he just sort of a phone call that happens a couple of days later.
So hang on, so it's Alan Bennett and Steve Coogan just kind of like ring you up, just Mr. Scarborough's number.
You're just showing off now.
Yeah,
really.
Every now and then.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love to hear the work that you turned down, though, if that's the quality of the offers that you get. Nothing, I suppose.
I never turn anything down, ever.
Well, what's the rest of 2007 got in store for you then, Samuel? 2007
is looking distinctly dry. 2008, there is something in the pipeline, but that's 2008. It's so far away. So this year is much more open. Whatever comes along.
I think my favourite line in the film, I don't know if you can remember the script exactly, but it begins with, I'm Jewish, I'm small.
Let's think, I've probably forgotten it now. I'm a Jew, I'm small, I'm homosexual, and I live in Sheffield. I'm f***ed.
Gentlemen, thanks very much indeed. Now, we do like an oxymoronic guest on the bell, a beloved Ofsted inspector. It happened to our next guest. Professor Gervais Finn enjoys a distinguished career as author and public speaker. Many teachers have unlocked closed imaginations thanks to his text, Young Readers and Their Books. For Teachers TV, he presented Worth the Trip, cutting through the hysteria about school outings and the dangers they pose for teachers. He's about to go on tour around the country. Please welcome Gervais Finn. Thanks for coming on, Gervais.
Pleasure.
Now, when you were doing Worth the Trip, was there a moment when you thought, what has life come to compared to the days when I was happy in the Dales? What teachers have to deal with these days in terms of public paranoia?
Yeah, I mean, I have a month in Canada every year, Peter, and they don't have this problem with risk assessment. I think if you seem to walk past a matchstick these days, you have to have risk assessment documents. But Worth the Trip was really good because it took youngsters out, it took them to battlefields, to museums, to ecological centres, to biodiversity places. It was just absolutely brilliant. And it was saying to teachers, you know, this is a really good way of looking at the curriculum outside the school gates, really. It was good fun.
I think children and pupils of all ages for years have known the joy of escaping from the four walls of the school. It's funny that it's only laterally that we're getting on to the fact that that can be harnessed, that sense of freedom.
Well, I think teachers have been, I mean, teachers are bombarded, as you know, with snowstorms of paperwork all the time. And they're perhaps a little less willing now to take youngsters out to the castle or to the canal or the lakes because of the worry. And it's sad. And I think because for me anyway as a child, I mean, school trips were just some of the best parts of my school career, you know. I met a girlfriend in Scarborough, certainly, when we were on the field trip. And when we were doing...
more like it.
But when I got to Scarborough and we went all round the moors and everything, we were told all these things in the geography books, like drumlins. Drumlins were described as a basket of egg scenery. And I was there looking for little eggs. Drumlins are huge. But, you know, I mean, my school days were very... Interestingly, I went back to see my old infant teacher last week, Miss Wilkinson, and she's 101. And she said to me, the lovely Paul, she said, do you remember when you wet yourself? And I said, I do. Because it was the first time I'd been laughed at. And I was on the nativity, the curtains opened, and I was a palm tree. And I was encased in brown crepe paper with papier-mâché coconuts, and I had, you know, cardboard fronds and a green balaclava. And a little boy of 6 saw the people, the audience, laughing at me. And I looked for my mother and father, and they weren't laughing. And they said to me, well, you know, carry on, love, keep going, and I did. But I wet myself, and it seeped through the crepe paper, and bits dropped off, and revealing these electric blue underpants. And the palm tree went off stage. Now, I reminded this 101-year-old teacher, I said, do you remember what you said to me? She said, no, I don't. Some teachers I know would have stabbed the air with a finger and said, you silly child. Why didn't you go to the toilet before you went on the stage? You've spoilt it. But I said, you didn't. I said, you put your arm around me. You gave me a cuddle. and you said, "Don't worry, lovey. I used to wet my knickers when I was a little girl." And, you know, she looked across a teacup at 101 and said, "Yes," and she said, "Gervais, and it comes full circle." So I had lovely school days.
And you've actually managed to get an entertaining stage show out of being an Ofsted inspector. How did you manage to do that?
Well, because it was the children and the teachers. I mean, it was the Ofsted has a particular language to use. Ofsted speak, you know, satisfactory or sound or above, you know. But I always was fascinated by, and the teaching profession is great, and I think teachers take on that most important role. And I've seen the most wonderful teachers. They don't really get the press. Let me give you an example, if I may. Miss Rees, a Welsh teacher in her first year of teaching, going down the corridor. She's not fazed by me as an inspector. She turns to me and she says, "I tell you this, Gervais," she said, "if you think my lesson plan bears any resemblance to what I'm doing today," she said, "you've got another thing coming." She said, "because I plucked it out of the air. I plucked it out of the air." I said, "Right, why?" "Well, I got a lesson plan," she said, "it was fabulous. It's a fabulous lesson. And I was bring my little chicks in from home because we have a farm. I said to the children, it'd be fabulous if they saw the little chicks, real chicks, you know, first-hand experience." Ed said, "I can't do it." Ed said that under Ofsted it's illegal for live creatures to be in the classroom. Is that right? I said, "It is." Under paragraph 8, subsection 3, footnote 9, I said, revised. I said, "There's only one exception, Miss Rees." "Oh, yes." I said, "That's chicks. Now bring your chicks in." She brought them in, and the little faces were like, well, like chapel hat pegs, as we say in Yorkshire. They just stare. Little girl said, "Miss Rees," she said, I love them chicks. I do. I love them. I love them chicks. and I want to own one of those chicks." And Miss Rees said, "No, no, you can't. Look at that, Bethany. Just look at them." Now, Miss Rees had on a yellow mohair jumper, all fluffy. I knew what was going to happen, you see. Those of us who work with young children know what's going to happen. The little boy stroked Miss Rees. The little girl, she too stroked Miss Rees. In fact, I was quite tempted, but anyway. But the little boy stood up at the back and said to Miss Rees, he said, "You know, miss, you just look as if you've been laid." Now, I said to my team of inspectors, "Leave our door open because the staff room will erupt with laughter in a minute." And it did. Schools, I think, you see, should be cheerful and welcoming and full of fun. And I've seen teachers that do that.
If only you could visit all of them. Gervais, thanks very much indeed for coming on.
Thanks, Peter.
Gervais,
Thank you very much.
Now, for a certain generation, Floella Benjamin will always be seen through the round window of Play School, but her influence and commitment to education have gone way beyond entertainment for children. She's behind the Touching Success organisation, which aims to inspire kids who don't have the advantages of their contemporaries. She continues a successful acting career, playing Thandie Newton's mum in David Schwimmer's film Run, Fat Boy, Run. She, of course, has run the London Marathon at least 7 times. Please welcome Floella Benjamin. How you doing? Good to see you.
Thank you.
You're looking fantastic, Floella.
Oh, you say the nicest things.
Well, I'm not contractually obliged to, but I just wondered why you managed to have a smile on your face when obviously you move into areas that would depress most of us, some of the areas that the kids that you help, for example.
Well, I always tell children and young people that winners smile. And when you smile, no one really knows how you're feeling. And I've had to face a lot of adversities in my time, but people always come and say sorry to me in the end, years later, because you see winners smile, and I believe I'm a winner.
Well, you see, it's OK for you've got a gorgeous set of pearly gnashers to flash at people. For those of us with bad or stunted teeth, there's no hope at all.
Well, you can grin.
I can grin, yes, exactly. But how different was the Britain that you expected when you arrived in 1960 from Trinidad?
Oh, it was terrible. I wrote a book, in fact, about it called Come Into England. And I take it to schools, and because I made a film of it for the BBC, and we talk about the issues that you had to deal with in 1960 when I arrived as a 10-year-old child, and they were quite horrific, I must say. I had people spitting at me, lifting up my skirt and saying, "Where's your tail then, monkey?" Grown men would do this. And I had to really be strong. Many of the children, the new children who come to this country, are being called names. Children who have got, you know, the headdress, Muslim children, Muslim girls, they're telling me when I talk to them in schools, "Floella, how do you know how I feel?" because we've all been children. We all know what it's like to feel rejected. The difference it can make by giving children that feeling of, yes, I can do this. Yes, I can believe in myself. Yes, yes, yes. Especially young black kids, boys especially. They need to be loved and to be nurtured and to be told that they're worthy.
In a sort of cynical age and an age of instant gratification for a lot of kids, you know, isn't your message naive nowadays? Are kids themselves, in a lot of cases, too cynical to see the optimistic side?
Perhaps they are, and that's why we've got to change their attitude. Because the story I was going to tell you is about this little boy who didn't believe in himself. And I met him many, many years ago. And he was very disruptive. I was in a school doing an assembly, and he was very disruptive. And I called him out and I said, hey, come up on the stage with me. What do you like doing? Because obviously what I like doing, you don't like it. He said, I like karate. OK, I said, I'll do karate with you. Do all that with him. And I hugged him and I kissed him, which unfortunately you're not allowed to do nowadays in schools. But I told him that I loved him and I believed in him, and that if he worked hard and if he believed in himself too and listened to what people told him, he could go far and he could be somebody someday. 20 years later, I'm in a supermarket looking at my E's, and I look, checking it, and I hear a voice behind me saying, are you going to hug and kiss me again, Fluella? Who's that? I looked around, and there's this tall, 6-foot-odd guy. He tells me the story. He said, but when I went home and I told my mum, she said, get out of here. You'll never be anything. He said, all my life, Fluella, I remember what you told me. Now I'm 31. I've got a wife, 2 little kids, and a little business, and every day I think of you because you made me believe in myself. That's all it takes. What about the teachers, though? Do you know what I mean? Because I think a lot of teachers don't feel any empathy. They get hostility back from pupils. How do teachers feel valued themselves? I think, yes. I think, you know, we as a nation need to value our teachers. I wanted to be a teacher when I was a girl. People say to me, because you went into play school, you became a teacher anyway. And I love working with children. That wasn't teaching. That was singing songs and enjoying playing with toys. Well, I did that because people tell me, you know, because of you, I'm doing what I'm doing today. You taught me to tie my laces. You taught me how to read. You taught me how to enjoy poetry, how to dance, how to sing. And children are very, very clever. They know whether someone loves them or not. When you walk into a classroom, you know whether this teacher really cares for you or whether it's just a job. But what if you hate the teacher? Well, again, I tell the children, the teacher is there like Santa Claus. Your teacher is like the best thing you can ever have. They don't get paid enough to give presents away. But it doesn't matter, you see. Yeah. The fact is, as a teacher, you're not doing it for the money. You're doing it because you are changing the world. I mean, think of the job that you have. Just think what you can do. Keep that alive. Do you ever have moments of self-doubt? Never. Never. OK. Fluella, thanks very much indeed for coming on. Fluella Benjamin.